Liberalism versus Christianity. There is a war. It is said to be a war of good against evil. We know evil destroys what is God's because evil cannot build, but only destroy. Evil harms assets, meaning the elements of the real world. But it is not property that evil is after, it is power over life. Evil destroys life, sometimes directly and sometimes in less dramatic ways. By destroying property and the value that has been added to our assets, evil compromises our ability to live. Power over life is the ultimate objective of evil. Sometimes, evil will attack life indirectly by attacking a woman's willingness to procreate and a man's willingness to support his family or his desire to defend his homeland. Evil likes to discourage us and to give us a sense that resistance is not only futile but foolish. Evil loves apathy because apathy is the sense that nothing is to be gained from combating evil. Apathy is ultimately the sense that life is not worth protecting. The devil is illiberal and therefore parasitic. Evil never pays its costs. Every action performed that transfers costs onto an external target is evil. Any destruction of value without recompense or an improvement in the asset is an attack on life and civilization. Liberalism does not go after assets directly. The agents of Satan posit a justification for evil by imagining a higher order of good. Evil legitimizes the evil done by reference to a higher good. For example, liberals will argue for more leniency towards criminal in pursuit of some greater good. But this prioritizing evil over good is corrosive and over time destroys civilization. It destroys the value on which civilization is built. Civilization is the sum total of all the good done in the face of evil and despite the attempts of the state to derail the process. The objective of a demon is to infect the world with liberalism. The left wants to wear us down until we become more tolerant and broader-minded. Bigotry, racism, and intolerance is frowned upon, because it is through tolerance that evil enters among us. The biggest lie we have been told is that liberalism is tolerant and open-minded, meaning that if one is a bigot, one must be religious. Liberalism is only open-minded and tolerant about the forces of destruction. Liberalism means one's faith tied to Scripture. One is liberal when one is open-ended concerning the source of truth. Liberals value freedom because they oppose objective systems of justice. Those who believe in a higher power believe all truth is derived from and encapsulated in Scripture, and that all truth and science can be derived from Scripture. Every solution can be found, implicitly or explicitly, in Scripture. Therefore, Scripture sets the standard and is the final authority in all things. To have truth is to have only one source of truth. To say this is not true and that there are other sources of truth and that not all solutions are derived from Scripture, means one is a liberal. On this point is where good is divided from evil. It is not that we become evil by doubting Scripture, but if we do not follow Scripture, we will destroy value and compromise life. Those who do not adhere to Scripture represent a threat to those who do. Thus, there is a need to separate. Good cannot commune with evil. There is no negotiated settlement between life and death. Any compromise with death takes something away from life. The dead have nothing to give. All the right can do when we negotiate with the left is to agree with them and their freeloading to some degree. A negotiated settlement only means we get them to take less than they might have otherwise. We get them to let us live a bit longer. A mission is a platform on which we prove the validity of Christianity. Missions defend the faith in a hostile world, even as we create proselytes. A commission is a calling or a duty. It defines the way one convinces others that faith has value. There is a right and wrong and good and evil exist. Our commission is the way we insert good and value into the world. It is the means by which we bring civilization to the savage. Loving our enemies is not about avoiding violence or excusing criminal behavior. In fact, to be supportive of criminality and to engage in enabling behavior exemplifies liberalism. But do we then become draconian in our response to crime? This reaction also betrays a liberal nature. Responding with love does not require being without an agenda. Love does not make us apathetic. To understand the difference between how the liberal thinks and what Christianity is, we need only to look at the state. The state is the point of the liberal spear. Liberals want peace and is willing to wage war to get it. Liberals want to save the environment and is willing to destroy civilization to protect it. Radical ends justify autocratic means. The ability to do something, for a radical, means that one has the right to do it. Costs are not an issue for liberals because they do not pay their costs. The only thing that matters is power. The one with the most power wins. The one with the least power dies unless he surrenders to the power of the state. But where does power come from? Liberals believe power comes from force or the threat of force. Which is why the state maintains a monopoly on the use of force. This kind of power is inherent or intrinsic to the system in which the power is exercised. But this power is the power of the parasite. Ultimate power for a parasite kills the host and therefore, the parasite. Fundamental power must come from outside of the system, from metadata. Power comes from the ability to manipulate the elements of the environment. This requires a control system that is transcendent. The driver is never part of the machinery he operates. Power is manifest in the control over life and death. But humans have no control over death, and so for us, controlling life is the ultimate expression of power. The levers we use to control life is assets, or property. If we control the water supply, we control life. Liberals believe the instructions for nature, the natural law, is inherent in nature but no system contains within it the instructions to its operation, and no set of instructions exist without a group of elements that can be manipulated outside of the data that compose the instructions. Therefore, natural law is not inherent in a physical universe. Therefore, the very foundation on which natural science is founded, is flawed. Liberal thinking gives them what is called, the dual doctrine of power, a principle that asserts might makes right and the end justifies the means. If control over life is the end game, then the power to control the dispensation of water or other life-giving elements, gives the autocrat power. Liberals support democracy, because by voting in an autocrat, the people authorize the state to control the resources that make life possible. But this is not the way of Christianity. The Christian system, predicated on the Church, creates man and God. Something which an autocracy or theocracy does not. The imperialist system of government, based on Westminster, dictated a separation of powers. But this separation was not simply to ensure no agency could achieve dominant authority. Though perhaps this is what it has been interpreted as. England was a nation, where every man did his duty. It was expected and it was an expectation that was enshrined in the very sense of what it meant to be British. To be English, precluded exploiting one's position. No amount of power sharing would have prevented sloth and corruption, had it been in the British character. Thus, for a number of reasons, in Britain predatory government was restrained. The focus on duty required everyone contribute something, which means parasitism was minimalized. This is the sole secret of the British Empire. The need to be honest and to do one's duty was not conveyed fully or consistently, but when compared to what happened in other nations and colonies, it was enough to give England a diverse empire. The point of saying this is to make it clear that England was not as other nations, but no one, not even England, could see it clearly. England did what it did without knowing what it did. In this it was blessed by God. Romans 2:12-16 For as many as have sinned without law shall also perish without law, and as many as have sinned in the law shall be judged by the law. For not the hearers of the law are just before God, but the doers of the law shall be justified. For when the Gentiles, which have not the law, do by nature the things contained in the law, these, having not the law, are a law unto themselves, which show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts the meanwhile accusing or else excusing one another, in the day when God shall judge the secrets of men by Jesus Christ according to my gospel. People think living by the law means living by a set of precepts written down. This is the law of the flesh. The law written in our hearts is something different. As specific instructions, but principles we all know. Deduction is not about an internal dialogue but about the recognition of a higher order of existence. A priori is a process which transforms a system from an induction to a deduction format. England was a priorian. The English believed there was a higher order to which the mundane had to comply with. It did not matter how high one was, in England, one had a duty to perform. Nor did it matter how low one was. One had value and a place because there was a higher power to which all were subjects of. Christianity is not a religion because its precepts are not contained in a set of written laws but are deduced from a higher order represented by Jesus Christ. No other system or religion can a priorize because none have access to the metadata that is found in Christianity. Philosophers look for the first order principle, but they cannot find that truth which leads to all truth, because they cannot induce Christianity or Christ from observation. England employed the world's highest form of Christianity, not in the Anglican Church but in the English spirit. England above all others understood there is order in the universe and that order has nothing to do with law, especially the laws of man. A person had to adhere to the truth and that truth was primarily about man's relationship with God. We had to build his church which is the people of God. Ultimately the church became manifest in the English Empire, that was never solely about the power of England or the power of the crown. It was about creating a world that we all could live in which everyone had a role to play. This was not a perfect implementation, but in this world, one does not have to be perfect. One only has to be more spiritual discerning than others. Other empires used their colonies solely to enrich the motherland. England created mini Englands. And so, their colonies prospered like no others. In the end, Christianity comes down to nothing more than treating others as you would have them treat you. No one wishes to be robbed or exploited, and this is all it takes to succeed in this world. Liberals on the other hand think that there is a superior order found within the lower order. However, they think their own needs express that higher principle. Their needs preempt all other considerations, and so liberals create an unholy alliance between the state and the victim class. The victim class supports the state, and the state supports the victim class. The state wants power and victims want restitution, and this need justifies what they must do to fulfill their needs.